Hello, my name is Lynn. I will be presenting utilitarianism versus Kantianism. Alright, so here's the quick outline of what we'll be going over in this presentation. So we'll be reviewing utilitarianism, some history and a little bit of concepts, as well as Kantianism's history and concepts. It'll be very basic because both of these perspectives have a lot of information, so I've sort of slimmed it down to actually fit my time requirement. Afterwards, I'll be applying both perspectives to a case study, and we'll be concluding the presentation, and towards the end I will have all the references that I've used throughout the presentation. So we'll start with Kantianism. It's important to understand how it was developed. This gentleman here in this picture is Immanuel Kant. Westcott states that he was known to be the most profound and original philosopher during his time, especially in his works with the metaphysics of morale. It's important to understand that during his period when he was developing everything, is that people's morals were heavily influenced by religious beliefs. But Kant believed that people are free beings. They think rationally, and if we think rationally, the idea and rule is dismissed if it's selfish. Continuing, it's based on the idea of anything good and bad. It's enforced by a categorical imperative. So Kantian ethics explains that a categorical imperative is a supreme principle of the individual that serves a purpose of achieving a moral duty. So the best way I can explain that is by giving you an example. The best example I can think of is to not plagiarize. And I say that because even if plagiarizing would improve your outcomes and get you a better grade, one probably shouldn't, because its immediate outcome does not serve the moral duty. We know it's wrong, so we shouldn't be doing it. And the great thing about that is that, about this theory, is that there can be no exceptions to the rule. You think to yourself, okay, maybe just this one time, but no, there can be no exceptions. The consequences do not necessarily have to be positive, so long as they make the moral decision that should have been made. So I just put that there because we go back to the example of plagiarizing. If we plagiarize, we know we'll get a better grade, but in the end, we are breaking our categorical imperative. So it does not serve the duty of our belief, so we don't do it. We don't make that action. Immanuel Kant also believed that your self-rules, your categorical imperatives are based on personal experiences. Kant also believed that the motivation was a defining factor in determining the person was morally good or bad. Moving along to utilitarianism. This is a very popular ethic that most people agree with. To the left is Jeremy. He developed this kind of like foundation of utilitarianism by using a hedonistic version of it. And Mr. John Stewart on the right, he took that foundation and derived a more modern theory of utilitarianism. Nathanson claims that these two were social reformers and important theorists that influenced work in moral theory involving economic, political, and social policies. Okay, continuing on. Actions are the right to the degree that they tend to promote the greatest good for the greatest number. That is by one of the founding fathers of utilitarianism. I thought that quote was really relative because it pretty much encompasses everything that this theory is. The main concept of utilitarianism is to choose the option that produces the outcome with the most happiness and pleasure. One can argue about the quantity over quality. According to Kay, the utilitarian approach is to attempt to bridge the empirical factors and the normative conclusions, a simple cost and benefit analysis. Utilitarianism is pretty much ruled by pleasure and pain. Kay also states that utilitarianism fails to acknowledge individuals' rights, which is a great example for this is a trolley problem, because if you choose that one person to the 1 over the 5, you're ignoring the one person's like feelings or beliefs or their values. Like you're ignoring them, their rights. So that's why I thought that was pretty relevant. Okay, so moving along, we have the case study here. Here is a brief summary of what it is. It's pretty much a mother that was pregnant who had cancer, who had terminal cancer, and they wanted to save the baby over the mother's life. Mother didn't want it, physician didn't want to do it, but court justified that mother is inevitably going to die anyways, so save the baby. Mother's wishes were ignored. Baby died 2 hours later after the C-section, and mother died 2 days later. That's pretty much a quick, brief summary, quick and dirty. So the moral dilemmas here, was it morally right to ignore Angela's wishes? Is saving the fetus the correct choice since the mother was inevitably going to pass? In the healthcare world, is it right to always listen to the patient's wishes? So, applying the two perspectives, we'll look at as an approach for Kantianism is following the categorical imperative. So we'll do what is right no matter the outcomes. A Kantianism perspective would manage this predicament to follow mother's wishes because she was able to declare her wishes. Although Lily Schwauer mentions that choices must be made logically and rationally to satisfy the imperative. So people could argue that this statement says, well, logically and rationally she's going to pass, so we should choose the fetus over the mother. But it does not satisfy the imperative set. In the healthcare setting, it might be that a Kantian belief is to treat all patients that desire to be treated. All right, continuing. I put this here again. Others may argue that a logical and rational choice is to save the baby, but the mother was able to voice her choices, and since she was able to voice her choices, we know that she doesn't want it, so it doesn't meet the criteria of our categorical imperative. A Kantian would bring up free will. It is a mother's choice to be treated and made comfortable. Being able to treat the mother and allow her to live comfortably would meet the requirements of a Kantianism approach because it shows goodwill and duty, reflecting the morality of the action regardless of the consequences. Johnson and Cureton state that creatures with rational wills possess autonomy. And saying that, we are pretty much trained to listen to our patients, let them have their autonomy. So in this perspective, we would choose mother's wishes. A utilitarian approach. Kay claims that utilitarianism theory is defined as morality in terms of maximization of the decision for all parties affected. So if the baby were saved, it would have a long and happy life with family, who will also be very happy with the baby. The only loss here is the mother, but life expectancy was kind of bleak anyway. All right, continuing, the case was observed as the mother has very little to live and the fetus will have a longer time to live. Seems reasonable to some, but what about Angela's choices? Utilitarianisms tend to think about the future consequences when planning, so it would not be out of the norm to choose the fetus over the dying mother. West claims that the Founding Fathers believed that human actions are purely motivated by pleasure and pain. That involves all parties. The utilitarian perspective somewhat ignores what others when settling, so it doesn't really regard Angela's wishes at the moment. So, with that said, the fetus will be chosen over Angela's request. So now we have to decide, do we take the utilitarianism route or do we take the Kantianism route? So it depends. Does happiness mean that much to you? Does believing the option chosen is for the greater good? Do you like quantity over quality? Or do you have high moral standards and such that the consequences do not matter if it does not provide mass happiness? Are there rules that are set in stone that just cannot be broken? So we'll conclude this. Having to decide is an arduous situation. It's never easy, no matter the perspective. The choices must be made, and depending on the individual's moral compass, some may disagree or agree. May it be a Kantian approach or a utilitarian. Personally, I lean towards the Kantian theory because I respect the idea of free will and autonomy. Thank you for watching. It's a little over the time, and I apologize. So here are the references that I used throughout the presentation. Again, thanks for watching.